What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button, and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
The change of generations of the Kia Ceed came in 2012. It was then that the novelty was shown at the Geneva Motor Show. The car was supposed to become more European, retaining all the strengths of its predecessor, and in general it succeeded. Technically, the update was evolutionary and rather soft. The platform was changed from J4 to J5, but actually it was a revision with preservation of wheelbase and suspension schemes. Even the name Ceed was still written with an apostrophe at that time. Strictly speaking, the official abandonment of it took place only in the next generation. The cars reached Russia quickly in 2012. In addition, large unit assembly of the model was organized at the Kaliningrad of Toda, where the cars were brought from the main plant in Slovakia for additional assembly. Prices at the start of sales managed to keep at the level of the predecessor. The change of generations took place with an increase in price by 10,000 rubles. Then for the Ceed asked from 600 to 950,000 rubles, if we leave behind brackets charged version. In 2015, the car underwent a restyling, which was very modest, slightly retouched optics and bumpers, as well as a new motor with direct injection. By the restyling, the prices went up, but not so much. Then the Ceed cost from 750,000 rubles, and rich versions were a little more expensive than $1 million. And even by the time of the change of generations, the model remained quite competitive in price. In 2018 for the basic Ceed asked about 850,000, a decent configuration was stacked in $1 million, and the top cost about 1.3 million. It is not surprising that sales were consistently good by the standards of the segment. The car was distributed in circulation of 25 to 30,000 pieces per year. Accordingly, the secondary market of the model is very extensive. At the moment of writing the material, there were almost 1,500 pre-restyling cars and 1,000 restyling cars for sale on Avito. Let's find out whether it is difficult to choose a good one from them. Cars up to 10 years of age are still quite good at resisting aging and corrosion, so serious bodywork problems are not usually encountered. Of course, it is necessary to exclude from the average sample the station wagons, which worked in cab. They already have rotted sills, rusty door bottoms, stripped arches and other neglected problems. Well, rust on the front edge of the ungalvanized roof, fender edges and luggage door is found in decent cars. Sills inevitably suffer from sandblasting, so they must be inspected, especially from below, in the seam area. And also on a low car they are often damaged on curbs, so the presence of corrosion here is often associated with poor quality repair. Bumpers are famous for weak fasteners, which are damaged and detached at light contacts. And when the gaps change, bumpers begin to rub through the paint in the places of joints with fenders. Smaller issues include paint rubbing through doorways due to gaskets, and door handles and rails that are peeling off. Although the problem with handles is usually characteristic of working cars, the prices for original body parts can be a surprise for the owner who has moved to Ceed from another Korean car. Judge for yourself. If the front wing for 25 to 30,000 is not so shocking, the hood for 100,000 or even more expensive, it is another level. Of course, the wing can be bought non-original for 8 to 20,000, but the hood even in this case will cost 25 to 45, which is a lot. The front bumper costs 25 to 40,000 for the original and 10 to 20,000 for analogs. Windshield is another example of expensiveness. For the branded asked 50 to 70,000, although the non-original will cost 7 to 20,000. By the way, we are talking about a 5-door hatchback. Many details of 3-door hatchbacks are their own in cost, as a rule, more expensive. But the headlights here are common, halogen, and therefore not so expensive. The original can be bought for 30 to 40,000 and the substitute for 12 to 30,000. Fortunately, the high price of original parts is compensated not only by the assortment of analogs, but also by the availability of cars at the scrap yards, so you can not be afraid of deficit for Ceed. The Ceed inherits the suspension schemes from the first generation. It has a McPherson strut up front and a multilink rear. By the way, it favorably differs from its sister sedan Cerato, which has a conventional torsion beam at the rear. At the start of sales, however, the rear suspension received a share of criticism for excessive instability and rocking, but this problem was promptly eliminated. Well, in maintenance and repair, the running gear will be a little more expensive than Koreans of old school. Some details here, as well as in case with a body, cost unexpectedly much. For example, for the front L-shaped lever in an assembly asks 25 to 40,000 and more, the price tag, which could be forgiven BMW for Kia, seems incredible. However, a non-original lever can be bought for 5 to 12,000 rubles. The ball bearing is riveted here, but there are original repair ball bearings for 2-2, 5,000 and non-original ones from 1,000 rubles. The rear silent block of the lever is also available for replacement. It will cost 1 to 2,000 for the firm and from 500 rubles for a non-original. The front hub is changed only in an assembly and costs 10 to 15,000 for the original and 4 to 15 for analogs. Even stabilizer struts here are a little more expensive than expected. Usually non-original ones start from 400 to 500 rubles, but here you can't buy them cheaper than 700, and decent ones will cost 1,500. The choice of shock absorbers is not great. 4 to 5 brands offer them for Ceed at the price from 4 to 15,000, and firm ones will cost 12 to 15,000 for a piece. Rear ones are much cheaper, 2 to 5,000, but there are even less non-original ones. The rear suspension will not show itself either. Brakes on the Ceed are expectedly simple, with single piston mechanisms with floating bracket, but always discs all round. At the front, most cars will have 280mm discs, but 320mm discs can be found on the most powerful versions. At the rear, unventilated discs are fitted, either 262mm with a conventional mechanical handbrake or 284mm with an electromechanical one. The design of the parking brake differs completely. The basic one has the usual drum design inside the disc, but the electric one implies flat discs clamped by standard calipers. Needless to say, electromechanics implies an expensive control unit on the rear axle. It has a 6-digit price tag and no analogs, so that in case of breakage it will be necessary to repair and, most likely, to look for plastic gears or print them on a 3D printer. But the button instead of the handbrake lever is found only on the most expensive kits, so if you do not chase them, there will be nothing expensive in the brake system. Expendables are inexpensive. For example, the front disc can be bought from 4,000 at the price of the original in 8 to 10, and the rear one from 2,000 instead of 7 to 12. The Ceed has electric power steering on the steering shaft. The scheme is unexpectedly repairable. Usually the motor of the amplifier is not delivered separately, but only in assembly with a steering column, but for Ceed it can be bought as an independent unit. And even the price tag is not shocking, 15 to 25,000 for a new original motor. The mechanical rack is also predictably inexpensive, 30 to 35,000 for the original and 15 to 25,000 for analogs and restored versions. So the work of steering control at purchase should be checked carefully, but in order to bargain and not to refuse to buy. The choice of gearboxes in the Ceed was exhaustive. Before restyling, 6-speed manual and automatic were offered, and after restyling, they were joined by a robot with 2 clutches, working in tandem with the new engine. Manual gearboxes here without surprises, resource typical, about 2,250,000 kilometers, the clutch costs usual money, and flywheels. Practically on all versions simple single mass. However, the additional payment for automatic was small, so the popularity of mechanics was not used. Cars with it on the secondary market is only about 20%. The robotized transmission occupies even less, about 10%. The box with index D6GF1 has 2 dry clutches and is quite normal in operation, but not so widely mastered in repair, so buying a car with it implies a share of adventurism. Well, the vast majority of cars are equipped with a classic hydro-mechanical automatic A6MF1. This box itself is not bad, but the main question at purchase will be the history of its service. Often the oil in it during the warranty period is not changed, and after 100 to 120,000 the usefulness of this procedure is minimized. With proper maintenance and oil change once in 50 to 60,000 kilometers, the box can pass 150 to 200,000 kilometers before the first opening with replacement of torque converter lock-in pads. Besides, it works on heavier cars like Sportage and even Sorento, so it is relatively easy for Ceed. But routine maintenance and aggressive driving can reduce its life by 1.5 to 2 years. The choice of motors was more modest. No diesels were offered in Russia. But there were several gasoline variants: basic 1.4-litre with 100 horsepower, 1.6-litre with 130 horsepower, and after restyling. Also a variant with direct injection with 135 horsepower. Motors for 1.4-litre before and after restyling differ. Initially it was a unit G4FA of Gamma family, and then it was replaced by a more modern motor Kappa with the index G4LC. Both motors are united by all-aluminum construction, chain timing, phase controllers on the inlet and outlet, and simple distributed injection. And both are quite good, but are vanishingly rare on the aftermarket, as they were combined only with a manual transmission. The most popular variant is 1.6-litre G4FC of the same Gamma family, producing 130 horsepower. The motor is very familiar to everyone from Solaris and Rio, so there can be no difficulties with its maintenance in principle. Problems with resource are also minimal. The only thing that can mar a long and happy life is crumbling catalytic converters. The problem is not a mass character, but scoring in cylinders because of it is common, so some owners even remove the catalytic converter preventively. Besides, the catalytic converter can be bought new and even non-original. Otherwise, the motor is reliable and simple. In cab cars with it wind up 500,000 kilometers and even more. The third variant is a version of the same motor, but with direct injection, which has an index G4FD. The change of the power system did not affect the reliability, but the cost of potential repairs very much. Besides, the motor works in pair with the above-mentioned robot, which makes the purchase of such a car not that risky, but potentially more expensive. Taking into account that GDI engine and DCT gearbox were the prerogative of the top versions of the Ceed, the conclusion on the choice of a used variant can be made simple: do not chase the richness of equipment unless you are not ready to pay more money for repair and maintenance of the engine, gearbox, handbrake and other systems. However, there is no sense in asceticism. The best choice will be the golden mean, a car in a decent configuration with a motor 1.6 and a classic automatic from the first owner and with a mileage of up to 100,000 kilometers, about like this. If Autoteca will confirm the mileage and accident free history, and endoscopy will reassure perfect condition of cylinders and catalytic converter, on such car it is possible to drive 3 to 5 years and even more without investing in major repairs. As a matter of fact, nothing else is required from an ordinary Korean hatchback. In conclusion, while the Kia Ceed II priced at 1.2 million rubles may seem like an appealing option, it's essential to remember that chasing wealth often leads to unnecessary stress and financial strain. Instead of focusing solely on material possessions, consider the value of practicality, reliability, and your overall financial well-being. Investing in a vehicle should align with your long-term goals and lifestyle, rather than simply being a status symbol. Make informed choices that prioritize your needs and financial health over fleeting desires for wealth. Thank you for watching, and remember to drive wisely.